Inside the Birds is back. What's up, everyone? It's Geoff Mosher alongside Adam Caplan, and it is our first midweek Inside the Birds pod of the new season. Now, normally, and Adam knows this, like next Wednesday, for example, when we drop this pod at 6 a.m., as we always do, we will be doing our tape review podcast, meaning the Eagles will play Washington. Adam and I will talk to our sources. We'll get really good tape breakdown, let you know who played well, who didn't. That's what we did all last year. Got really good reaction. But we don't have a game to break down for week one. We only have a game to preview and some roster moves that the Eagles have made in the past 24 to 36 hours to get through. So we also have a big announcement coming up, Adam, right? Like we can't talk about it just yet. But maybe by the time some people are listening to this pod, they'll be able to see it on our social media accounts.
Yeah.
So I'm excited about it.
And by the way, you should definitely sign up because what we're probably going to do, because we have two announcements to make, both are pretty significant. So you definitely want to sign up for a mailing list, which is on InsideTheBirds.com. Just sign up for it. You'll get it immediately. And also, if you're on our message board, our Facebook board, we'll interact with people there. We'll take questions there for everything that we're going to be doing. It's probably the best way. And I saw some questions on our Apple comments. I'll try to get to them the best that we can. But we want to kind of keep the questions in 1-2 places so we don't have to look at 8 places. You know what I mean? It makes it a little bit easier for the traffic force. But we're excited, Geoff. I mean, look, it's Wednesday morning, folks. You're either listening on your way to work or you're consuming it online as you would be working it from home. Like Geoff and I. So we look forward to this season. We're here in week one, and I just never thought it'd get there after what happened in the spring. But we're here, and we have a game Sunday for the Eagles, and they're playing at Washington. And the funny thing is, Geoff, we'll do the preview pod a little bit later in the next show. But it's so odd to not have fans at games. So I don't think home field right now really matters. And plus, they're taking a train down there, right? I think they are. They usually do.
Yeah, that they've normally done the train. It is going to be very weird. Now, Washington, over the last few years, I wouldn't quite say they've had a great home field advantage anyway.
Exactly.
As we joked last year, we weren't sure who was going to get booed more because the Eagles or Washington in Washington, because both fans were going to be booing.
I'll tell you what, when the Eagles were at San Diego at the old that soccer stadium, the Eagles told me that it was like they've seen anything they've seen was 75% Eagle fans at the least, and that was that during their Super Bowl year?
Yes, it was. That was right after they beat the Giants. They went to the West Coast and played the Chargers.
Yeah, I think Blunt crushed them, if I'm not mistaken. I think Blunt had.
That game is pretty infamous for the Eagles taking the lead late, and then not late, but having about 6 minutes and I want to say 26 seconds left on the clock that they completely ran out on their last possession.
Man, how you knew that time? Jeez, wow.
Yeah, and LeGarrette Blunt did have an amazing day. And then what was significant was.
Yeah.
Right? They didn't use him 2 weeks ago before that against the Chiefs. He didn't have a single snap.
Okay. Because here's what happened in that game. That was the game where the players went to Doug because the pass run ratio was absurd. As much as I think you should be throwing the ball a lot.
Yeah.
It was, I think, 75-25 pass run. You can't, that's just not sustainable.
Right.
And the player committee said, listen, you need to dial this back a little bit. But look, but let me just mention this because this has been something we've seen in our Facebook board. I thought it was a really good point by some of our followers, our listeners, that Boston Scott is Miles Sanders' backup. But remember, the Eagles wanted Carlos Hyde, who's now with Seattle. They still don't have that big back. They don't have that big running back. If they get a lead and they want to pull Sanders, they're not going like Boston Scott is not the finisher. They definitely need someone with size to finish, but they don't have that guy right now.
Well, interesting. I mean, you could theoretically say Corey Clement is ready, is a bigger back and can handle that role, but he's also been injured the last 2 years. So I don't know, how easily the team wants to slide him if Sanders were to be hurt. How many carries they want to give Corey Clement or touches right off the bat, knowing that he's been hurt the last 2 years. So you make a good point. And we'll get into this in a little bit. They did keep the big backs on the practice squad.
Correct.
They got guys like Holyfield and Warren, right? Mike Warren, they can be called up for game day if needed because of the new rule. So we'll see if they take
but they've
advantage
never
of that.
played in a game. Right, they've never played a game. But going by what you told our listeners last fall, and I totally agree with this, at some point, you got to turn the page to the young players. I know they're doing it in some ways. That and Deuce Staley really plays a lot into this because he coaches them. If Staley thinks Warren or Holyfield is ready to be a goal line back potentially, if they have a lead, or give him a role where he can get 7-8 carries, then that would be the time to do it prior to the Washington game. And we'll see. Because we're putting the show up on Wednesday, we still don't know Sanders' status for the game. Doug Peterson indicated, sure, he certainly made it seem like he was playing last week when he said he's day-to-day. And Doug was asked about, was he concerned about any of the players that were hurt not playing? He didn't. He said, as far as he knew, they should be going. But until I know Sanders is out there practicing, because we've had a lot of questions on this, so I'll address it now. And we'll get to the rest of the injured players because we have a segment on that. We're not going to know for sure until we see what he does in practice. You just can't. You got 3 days of practice, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. That's what matters, and we're not going to know really until the end of the week.
Yeah, hopefully by our Friday pod, which we'll record Thursday night, it'll drop Friday morning.
Yeah,
we'll have Wednesday and Thursday practices, which are the main ones in the book. So we'll have a better idea on how it's going with Miles. Adam, before we get into it, I do want to remind people that we've already made one big announcement this week, and that's about our season-long daily fantasy football league that we're going to host courtesy on DraftKings and with DraftKings. So our fans will be able to go head-to-head with you and me, and pretty soon we'll be sharing the link on social media. So everyone make sure you're following us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. On Twitter, we're at Inside Birds. On Facebook and Instagram, Inside the Birds. So that'll give the people the opportunity to sign up. And of course, there's going to be weekly prizes, and then the season-long champion is going to get his or own Inside the Birds Fantasy Championship bracelet from Rosnov Jewelers. So I think that's pretty cool.
No, wait. If I win it though, do I get an ankle bracelet? Do I get a watch? What do we get?
I can see you rocking the ankle bracelet. No, the bracelet, like a ring. You're not going to be able to do much. You can't write fantasy. How big is this?
I mean, I got my wedding ring. Yeah, right. That's about it. Right.
But the great thing for people of Rosnov is that they can make a nice bracelet that's inscribed where it says, Inside the Birds Fantasy League Champion.
There you go.
So that is a good thing. Right.
Nice.
So also, we did a great. I hope everybody catches it. People love our interviews with Greg Cosell. All of the numbers prove it. So. Back by popular demand, we brought him back. We just did an Inside the Birds TV. That will also drop Wednesday morning. So by the time you're listening to this, it may be already up on our YouTube channel. And if you haven't seen it yet, make sure you check it out. We did a Eagles preview going into the season here with Greg, and he broke down. He had some really interesting things to say about the offensive line, I thought, and about the construct of the defense, how it'll be different this year, how it could be different this year than past. So it was really informative. Good questions you asked, Adam, and I thought his answers were great. So I encourage everybody to go to our YouTube channel and check out that Inside the Birds interview.
What I'd like to add to that is his intel on John Hightower. You got to hear it. It's just phenomenal.
Very
stuff on Greg Ward, which you and I probably weren't aware of sort of this usage the final quarter of the season. And we also talked, by the way, we slipped into Washington stuff.
Yes.
And Greg has some good intel there. So this is phenomenal. Before we get started here on our information and discussion on what's happened this week, this was phenomenal. There was so much I was not aware of because Greg has access to that all 22, and he's been breaking down coaching tape for 25 years. And you will love this one. You will be educated. Oh, by the way, before we start here, one more thing. He also talked about Jason Huntley. I mean, what else could you ask for?
He had, I thought, really good intel on it. He honestly, he spoke about Jason Huntley as if he had just watched 23 hours of tape on him the day before, but he hadn't. That's how into it he is with the scouting report. Yeah,
he has his notes. By the way, his notes you can find at fantasypoints.com. He gave John Hanson, the owner of fantasypoints.com, his notes, which are probably 7 or 8 pages. They're on this website, so make sure it's included in your subscription. And Geoff and I did a really good ITB TV with John last week. So if you're still drafting this week, make sure you go to our YouTube page. And that's that, Geoff. Let's get started.
All right, so let's talk about some of the final roster moves. I mean, listen, the roster changes every week because of injuries, but going into
Sure.
the year, what the Eagles have done. Now, if you follow me on Twitter at Geoff Mosher NFL, you would have seen on Monday, I tweeted that just because the Eagles have a spot open doesn't necessarily mean it's going to Cordy Glenn. And then I, tweeted that they had been talking to Richard Rodgers about coming back. And lo and behold, Richard Rodgers is now back. Adam, I think that makes sense for a couple of reasons. One, they only had 2 tight ends, and you would like your third tight end to be a little bit of a veteran, a guy who could step in and play a lot of snaps if one of them gets hurt. 2, he knows the offense. He's been here before twice. And 3, little carrot here, he just spent his training camp with Washington, week 1 opponent, which is different this year because they have an entirely new coaching staff and scheme than years past. So I think it was a good signing.
Sure. Yeah, Richard Rodgers. Look, it's his 3rd time. He's had a significant injury history. That's the thing that you're disappointed with. And Noah Togiai said with the Colts, he was claimed off waivers, so they had to do something. Remember, Josh Perkins is also out. He's done. I think they actually did they waive him with an injury settlement. It's been so long. I don't remember exactly what they did, but he got hurt anyway, so that's a non-factor. So you're right. It's got to be Rodgers. That happened, and then the roster tango with Cre'von LeBlanc, as we hinted on our Monday show, it would have probably mean we thought our sense was LeBlanc was going to come back. It was just a procedural move for one day, and that's what happened. He's an important guy, Geoff. It's not just special teams. He's their backup. He's a backup slot. He can play safety. As Jim Schwartz noted in his press conference on Tuesday, LeBlanc gives them some different looks. He could do some different things. He could play not just nickel, but slot nickel or a different version of nickel. So he's an important guy. He's been a good story development for them. And I loved it when LeBlanc was brought in. Jim admitted, was it 2 years ago, whenever the hell it was, that he never heard of him. I thought it was kind of funny. He just was not aware of the player. I guess they had him watch tape. And it was just funny the way he described it. Now he loves the guy. It's very clear that he really thinks the guy's got value. And that one worked out for them. LeBlanc is back, and I'm sure he'll dress on – well, I don't know that if he'll dress. He probably will dress on Sunday.
I think it's funny that when he made the team several years ago, if you remember, Ron Brooks was their slot corner, and Ron got hurt in training camp. Yeah, so he wound up getting released. Cre'von LeBlanc made the team. Didn't have to play until all of a sudden a rash of injuries came in. And then when he did have to play, it was almost the butt of the joke, right? Like this law firm cornerback trio of LeBlanc, Hawkins, and someone else that we would throw in there. I forget.
Who's the French guy? Who's the Cre'von? Who's the French,
exactly, right? And so the reaction back then was, oh my God, when can we get this guy off the field? Now 2 years later, the Eagles cut him in a kind of shrewd move, knowing they were probably going to be able to bring him back. And when they cut him, it was like, oh my God, what are the Eagles doing? Cutting
I know fans
LeBlanc?
on Twitter were going out of their mind, like they were not happy, like they were pissed off, and it was just a procedural move. So that happened, and then this is interesting. Now this is new this year, Geoff.
Yeah,
every team could protect 4 practice squad players. Now this is the list. Most of it makes sense. Deontay Burnett, because right now he'd be the first guy off the practice squad at receiver. So that way you can block 4 players who cannot sign with another club until that game is played. So any team is blocked from signing these players. So Sua Peta, who's a guard, who was with the team last year, and then Joe Osman, who would be the first DN off the practice squad. And now this one was interesting. I'm going to explain why. Trevor Williams.
It's unbelievable, this guy.
This guy is an enigma. He's a mystery wrapped up in a riddle. Trevor Williams from Penn State, who did start some games with the Chargers, probably the most asked question on our Facebook board. What is the story with Trevor Williams? Folks, I don't know. I thought the guy's decent. He has good size. He's 6 feet. But obviously the Eagles like him. But what the hell? Why didn't he sign with another team, Geoff, in the offseason?
All you need to know is they cut here's how ridiculous it is, right? They cut him twice. They have now cut him twice, and yet they have protected him on the practice squad.
I have no answer.
Two times they weren't afraid to lose him to another team, but now they're doing whatever. They're using a vehicle to make sure that no other team can sign him. I mean,
I don't
can't make this up. I love it.
But you know what? The guy's got ability. Yeah. I still can't understand. Like the guy had started games. Why was he on the street for 2 months after the Eagles cut him? He was only there for like a week or something in the offseason. But anyway.
I have no idea. You know, you and I do homework, right? We check into it. Yeah. And this is one of the things where sometimes even, at least for me, I speak to people and they're as baffled as you and I are. So
I apologize. I said, you know, I would try to find out. We got something else I just learned today, earlier on Tuesday that was interesting, but not on this player. I don't know. I still don't have an answer, but the transaction tells you an answer. They like him enough to let him hang around, but you really wonder if he could hang around and actually get on the field. Now, the Eagles right now, they've got some issues at outside corner. And Craig James, who they really like, they really do. But trust me, Jim Schwartz's quotes that he gave the media on Tuesday were I don't know if you'd say revealing, but he told the truth about how much he's developed and how much he's improved. He absolutely positively was one of their best defensive backs in training camp. He was really, really good. That's why he got that. It's a kind of a very small extension, only 1 year, but they really do like this player. And I don't know how they found this guy, but it's a pretty good story.
Yeah. Speaking of unanswered questions, I want to go back to Togiai real quickly.
Sure.
Because I don't know if I made this point well enough on our last podcast, because you made a great point. You know, we talked about the Colts claiming him, and I remember you saying, how did they know? Right. And I agree with that. I don't know. And I've really thought about it since that happened. And I'm really baffled to the point where I don't want to say something's fishy, but just something seems weird about the fact that with no preseason games, the Colts still claimed a player, a rookie, an undrafted rookie free agent who was performing well for the Eagles. How do you asked a great question. How did the Colts know? Now, somebody on our YouTube page joked with us that they must be listening to the Inside the Birds pod because we've talked about how good he's been, and other reporters.
Yeah, but the reporters did. But Geoff, the beat reporters had it. They like,
right.
You know, we had outlined this several weeks ago that teams are scouring Twitter because they can't get preseason tape. And the Craig James stuff, I didn't really put a lot of stuff out there because I just know that it was probably to our best interest not to mention every once in a while on our show. Right. But I absolutely avoided it on Twitter. I just decided not to put everything out there because I save it for our show.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm just telling you, this kid, this Craig James is a player. And then get it back to Togiai. I read Chris Ballard's quotes, the general manager. He was actually asked that. How did you know about this guy without any preseason tape? He said he thinks it was because of their scouts, that they knew they had information that he could help them. And remember, they lost Trey Burton, ironically, an ex-Eagle, to a calf injury. And Burton apparently is having a great training camp, but he's had such bad injury stuff. Since he left the Eagles, he wasn't really hurt much with the Eagles, but Chicago had several surgeries, and it's too bad.
Right.
But
I mean, I know Doug and Frank Reich are friends, but you can't imagine that Doug would have said, "Hey, Frank, we're going to release." We know the Eagles wanted him back, so it's just very.
Oh yeah,
very.
He was going on their 53, Geoff. Yeah, he was going on their 53 for sure.
Hey, good job by the Colts, man. The Eagles unfortunately may have outsmarted themselves on that one, but yeah, just a really strange. It would be one thing if it was a draft pick like Jason Huntley, who the Eagles they probably put work into him, right? He was a 5th-round pick of the Lions, so they probably had a good set of notes when they saw him on the waiver wire. But an undrafted rookie tight end, that's just rare. Very, very rare.
Yeah, and it sucks for the Eagles because they did such a phenomenal job of scouting this kid. And the word that you and I were getting first week was like, okay, like Tuhill came into training camp with I thought next to no chance. I mean, I'm just telling you what I'd heard because he's long but not strong. Andrew DeCecco and I were at East West Shrine Week, and I remember him, but I wasn't really paying too much attention. I just knew he was tall and lean. And then after the first week, Geoff, Tuhill never stopped to the point where he had to be on this football team, and he outplayed Osman. He just outperformed in practice. So this is good that the Eagles did the right thing. They kept the right players, except for Togiai. I don't have an answer, though, before we move on to our next segment. I don't know why they cut him. For the life of me, he earned a spot. So that beats me. I don't know.
I don't know either. All right, before we get into that next segment, download the top-rated DraftKings Sportsbook app today and use code ITB for a special offer when you sign up. That's code ITB for a special offer when you sign up only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Okay, so we want to get into some of these injured guys and what their statuses are, and some of them are majorly impact players. You know, we talked about Miles Sanders, Jalen Reagor, and there are a few other guys. You know, Genard Avery is kind of an interesting one because when he got hurt with the was it a bruise, right, leg bruise?
Yeah,
it was
he
in that.
actually,
Uh-huh.
yeah, he had a bone bruise and he had a slight knee sprain. But go ahead.
And a slight knee sprain.
Hmm.
The amount of time we thought he'd miss Adam would coincide with the season opener, making it kind of nebulous about whether or not he'd be ready to go. Do you have anything updated on that, or?
Yeah, I do. So number one, I thought for sure he would go on that 3-game IR and then be back right after that because he
Right.
had a bone bruise and a slight, I think it's a PCL sprain. Anyway, he sprained a ligament. Okay, that's the bottom line. But
Mm-hmm.
uh, my understanding was, they have a very light practice on Monday. He was practicing whatever the hell they were doing. He was working.
Right.
So that would tell me, and this is why the Eagles didn't put him on that 3-game IR. Geoff, I could tell you, I saw the injury in front of me. It happened 15 to 20 feet in front of me. I'm like, he's done. It was ugly. Right. Every reporter there saw it that was standing next to me. I was like, oh man, poor guy. And by the way, 2 days before that, he walked off, out of practice. So he's got a shot to play this week. One of the crazy things about injuries, you just never know. And when they carted him off, I'm like, oh, that's it. It didn't look good, so he's going to be out a while. But he's not. He actually has a chance week 1. We'll see what happens.
That's good.
Look, with Barnett, yeah, and we got Barnett's a guy that we're watching with his ankle injury. With Barnett missing all training camp, who knows about week 1? We have to see how he does.
Right.
Lane Johnson with his ankle, we're watching that. Jalen Reagor with his labrum, that small tear, which I'm told is, I never want to say a tear in a labrum is minor, but your reporting, Geoff, it explains it. It's really, really small. And my understanding is it's really not a big deal because there's really not any real pain. It's just managing the soreness. So
right.
It's our understanding, Geoff and I have kind of reported the same information. He's going to play in weeks 2 or 3 unless something happens. He's a setback or something in practice where he doesn't feel right. So I don't expect him to play this week against Washington, but the home opener against the Rams, he's got a real shot.
Right. And remember, I think we have to remember him being a rookie and them needing him for the long haul. They want him to be as close to healthy as possible. If this was his second year and if this Sunday's game was a playoff game, he's probably out there playing. But they want to make sure that this kid has no setbacks or doesn't get hit hard and then he's all of a sudden swelled up again. They want him to be as close to healthy and 100% as possible.
Well said. Yep.
Lane Johnson, well, it kind of flying under the radar, him being out as long as he's had.
There's been no reporting on this. Like I haven't seen that. Now I'll tell you, I know for a fact it's an ankle injury. I don't know. It's weird. Like one day I saw him riding a bike with Dillard before Dillard suffered a season-ending injury. Then I didn't see him again for like I don't know how long. So I don't know. Then he came back. He was just standing. I don't know. All I know is he's supposed to be ready. And the good thing about everything, we're going to get into the Jason Peters thing in a second. This leads into it. The good thing is, Geoff, they've got 4 out of their 5 offensive linemen. By a Festivus miracle, they're actually in their normal positions. I don't know how it happened, but
it's unbelievable how it works out.
And then Javon Hargrave, we're looking at the pectoral strain, Geoff. We're keeping an eye on that, and Genard Avery, as I just said. So they've got some injuries to be concerned about, and the effectiveness of these guys if they play in week 1, we can't answer because we need to find out, A, how much they're practicing, and then B, how much the team plans them on playing because, they got to get through these 3 practices.
Yeah, you wonder about an ankle with Lane. I mean, it feels like the way he's showcasing himself on social media that he's expecting himself to play.
Flexing and everything.
And he's tough as nails. I remember when he sprained his knee, I think in his 2nd or 3rd year, and normally an MCL sprain could put you out at least 2, sometimes 3 or 4 weeks. And I think he only missed 1 game, and he played very well. Ankle is tough, though. That's a real plant, area for an offensive lineman. So even if he play, you got to wonder about how effective he can be. Yeah.
Right. And by the way, it may or may not be. I haven't got this confirmed yet, but it could be the high. He had a high ankle sprain, a pretty bad one last year, which he played through. It could be the same ankle. Who knows? It could be scar tissue. I don't know. I just know it's an ankle. So we'll keep an eye on that, and we'll see what happens. But this, Geoff, this plays into our next segment in that Doug Peterson. I got to ask you a question here. So Peterson, everyone knows by now, Peterson said that Peters went into his office and said he's back at left tackle. What was your feeling and response? Like, what was your first feeling when you heard this?
What have I said about Matt Pryor for the last 2 podcasts? Even though we had no new information, even though he was out there at practice,
Okay.
I have said to you, I think on this podcast, that there is no way in my mind that I really believe that Matt Pryor is going to be the starting left tackle when the season opens. All right. I never for 1 second believed he was going to start left tackle. I would have believed more that they were going to find somebody else to play left tackle, whether it's Mailata or maybe even somebody they signed, although I don't think
Corey Glenn, yeah.
I don't think they were going to sign Glenn and then automatically start him at left tackle.
No, I get it. Yeah.
But I just knew Mailata was not going to play left tackle. Now, this thing about him,
for whatever
Peters going into the office, you know, I'm sorry. Do I believe that fully 100%? I'm a little bit cynical, so I don't. But does it even matter at this point? The point is, Jason Peters is your left tackle, right?
Yes, I got to tell you though, the more information I get on Peters, apparently he was incredibly dominant, according to multiple people I spoke with. Like after the first week, at right guard, yes, thank you. Yeah, he was incredible. Remember when Todd Hermans did our ITB TV, and I know Todd because he's a positive guy, but he made one of all the great points he made. He one point that stuck with me, and I ran it by someone and said it's absolutely true. Peters' bulk, he's somewhere between 340 and 345. Absolutely was a match for it playing guard. And because his feet are elite, it all matched up where you're like, oh my God, they should just go get a real left tackle and let him stay at left guard, at right guard. But Jason is going back to left tackle, which he's played for 11 years here. And now my understanding is Matt Pryor, not Herbig. I know Doug Peterson said Herbig, but Pryor in the light work on Monday was back at right guard. Not that that's some breaking news. We all knew that would happen.
Yeah, but why do you think Doug just didn't say? I know Doug likes to include everybody, but he didn't have to say, "Oh, and Nate Herbig is also in, and Jack."
Well, he might even want to throw a wrench into it. Don't give the Redskins, Washington team, team, the Washington football team. Any intel? Give me a break. I mean, come on. It has to be Matt Pryor. I know that Pryor did not have a great training camp, but come on, his tape last year left you wanting more because you saw some intriguing things. But the fact of the matter is, you would rather upgrade over Pryor, but this is what they have. They cannot afford an injury, Geoff. Let me just tell you one thing before we move on here. Jordan Mailata should be the backup left tackle. I don't want to see Matt Pryor back there again.
I agree.
Mailata's you know what? I agree with your assessment on young players. I should have said this. I should agree with you last year. I should have been on that bandwagon. Howie Roseman went on record saying it. They needed to get younger, and they've done that somewhat. But then the Peterson was necessitated because Brooks got hurt. But the fact of the matter is, it's now like Mailata's healthy. His last few weeks, I was told, were terrific. Get the guy in there as the backup left tackle. Like enough of this stuff. Playing with Pryor at the left tackle. It should be Mailata. This is Caplan's soapbox. I'm sick and tired of not giving Mailata a chance. That's just ridiculous.
Well, there you go. And we'll see, because Jason Peters is known to come out of games. He's known to be hurt.
Correct.
So we'll see if Jordan Mailata can lock that down. The only other thing I think of, and I know we've been told it's not going to happen, but I still think it could be good for the team if Jason Peters were to be out a long stretch of no left tackle, and maybe they don't think Jordan's really ready to play left tackle like that. The way they rave about Jack Driscoll, in my mind, I have a hard time thinking he's not going to play in some form or fashion this year. I'm not saying he's going to start. I'm not saying he's ready for that. But I just think that the way they speak about him, it wouldn't surprise me. Maybe even in a blowout or something happens where he plays right tackle, maybe Lane moves to left tackle if Jordan Mailata gets hurt or if Jordan isn't doing a good job. I think it's always a possibility. I just feel like this team feels more comfortable seeing Jack Driscoll play right tackle than they do at Matt Pryor playing left tackle, if that makes sense.
I agree with your assessment on Jack Driscoll, because I know they do really like him, but my sense is he's not quite ready yet. That's based on the intel that I have. They when I say ready to start a game, I don't know that he's actually exactly ready, but they do like him, Geoff. You're right. they're feeling pretty good about that 4th-round pick. We'll see what happens. He's got a versatility to play guard or right tackle. So,
right.
What else do you have? I know you got some other
real
notes.
quick, in all fairness,
Okay.
and I'm not, I understand why our sources feel this way, but how ready in 2017 was Big V, who was what, a 7th-round pick or a 6th-round pick to go in there and really play? I'm sorry, 5th round pick,
Washington.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
He was drafted.
Jack Driscoll's a 4th-round pick.
Right?
This guy was a 5th-round pick, and he went in and he played. And sure, he had rough moments like Jack Driscoll will have, but he eventually was able to figure it out. So I just think Jack Driscoll could figure it out if he had to play. So we'll go on from there. First, Adam, before we get to our next subject, I want to remind everybody to check out our friends at PHLSportsNation.com. They're always enhancing the fan experience with their coverage of all 4 Philly sports teams like nobody else. You can follow them on Twitter at PHL Sports Nation, or just check out their great coverage and content at PHLSportsNation.com, including some great podcasts. They do really wonderful work, so please make sure you're checking out our friends at PHLSportsNation.com. All right, let's just close this off with a few things I wanted to go through, Adam. I know we joke about the linebacker. Well, we don't joke. I mean, they're really considered the weakness of the team. But one positive thing I heard about Nate Gary, who's obviously going to start and play probably the most linebacker snaps, is that he got bigger this offseason, a little stronger and more equipped, and obviously to try to handle the run, which has not been his forte. He's a coverage linebacker. He's a former safety. He runs well. He had a big interception last year. Was it against the Jets that he returned for a touchdown? I can't remember. I remember he had a big.
Well, that was when they had 11 sacks. So
everybody had it.
Yeah, exactly. It might have. Yeah, it sounds right.
But I think the big concern for this linebacker crew is how well if someone wants to just line it up and run at him, how well are they equipped to stop the run? I still think it's a legit question and concern. I'm just relaying that I heard that Nate Gary got bigger.
That's actually good. No, it's a good thing because he could run. He's an athlete, but
right.
He's a converted safety, so you just don't know if he's big enough. I wonder. I'll try to check into how much he weighs, but that's good to know that he bulked up. That's he needs to do that, and it's a good thing.
Definitely. And also, something you said forced me to ask a few questions. You said that I almost under the radar, right? That Isaac Seumalo has had a really good camp, right? And I remember you a couple of years ago saying you had a really good camp and they really like him. If you've ever – go ahead.
I was going to say in 18, it was one of the first shows we ever did. It was in the spring of 18. It was the first note that I put on a show that I said that despite what the local media said about my Seumalo, he was their best offensive lineman in the spring. Mm-hmm. And he's on the verge of becoming a pretty good football player. And guess what? He became a very good football player, 18 and 19. But the thing is, Geoff, and this will get into your notes in a sec, 16 and 17, he looked like it was not going to happen. He had played with a lack of confidence.
Right.
He was down on himself. He didn't perform. And by the way, the 16 draft was historic, one of the best in Eagles history. But this one looked bad. And then something happened in 18. I don't know, third year, maybe get more confidence.
Right.
He kicked some serious ass in the spring. He came with an attitude, which is something he had not seen before. And in training camp, he was tremendous, Geoff. So if you fast forward to 2020, the guy's a terrific football player. He's on that peg, one peg below being a Pro Bowler.
Yeah. And what I was told this year, Adam, is now that he's, as you mentioned, the confidence has grown, is that he's actually developed into more of a vocal leader of the offensive line, which, as we've seen, has had some moving parts here. Now, he's always been kind of a quiet guy and, just kind of get in where you fit in. As you mentioned, he battled confidence earlier on. But I've been told he's been more of a vocal presence and really asserting his leadership throughout camp. So that's a good thing. Interesting news.
Wow.
That's he's not
stunning.
like the first guy you would ever think of to do that. Yeah.
No, that's why I said it. That's why I'm so surprised. So it's not the guy. He would be a guy, to be honest with you. I'm not taking a shot at the guy. I'm just telling you what I know of him. Geoff knows about him. Yeah. That's amazing. So that shows what happens, Geoff, in life. When you get confidence, you get out of your shell. I think we've all been through that. Many of our listeners have. When you get better at your job as you grow in it, then you could help younger people. And that's what he's doing. Good for him. That's an awesome note, Geoff. That's really good.
No, I was very surprised to hear it, and I thought it was worth mentioning as we close out this podcast. So that will do it for this edition of Inside the Birds, the leading podcast in Eagles Intel. Be on alert for our Friday podcast, 6 a.m. That will feature our first game breakdown of the year, the Eagles versus the Washington football team in the season opener. Everybody's juiced. I know, Adam, you are, I am, and
D-Jax,
we're ready to
bombs
go.
away.
Yeah, is that going to be a
Bombs away.
repeat? Another Djax feat?
Just
well,
like we called it.
Yeah.
The only thing we got right in that first game last year is that they're going to go to Djax bombs away, and they sure as hell did. And
right.
Boy, as John Hansen said, he was the Eagles MVP after that game because you saw how much they needed him. My God, did they need him? But anyway, I digress.
Oh, yeah, no doubt about it. But thanks to our producer, Hunter Brody. Check out his work on YouTube, Sports Talk with Broads. Also, check him out on Twitter, @Broads81. And as always, we thank you for flying with us inside the bird.